Adebayo discovers an old divination scroll hidden behind the family altar. On it is a binding pact made decades ago, an ancestral promise to sacrifice one child every generation to protect the family name. The last sacrifice was never made. Now the debt is due. As the compound descends into chaos, animals dying, dreams bleeding into reality, family members turning onto each other, Adebayo must choose. Will he uncover the truth buried beneath their name? They say inheritance is a blessing, a gift from those who came before. But what if the gift wasn't left in your hands, but hidden in your blood? Morẹ never asked for stories. She never lit candles for the ancestors. But even silence leaves an echo. It began quietly, a cough, software dry, persistent. She was standing by the window, watching the rain refuse to fall. Her throat itched, her chest tightened. She coughed, again. It didn't sound like hers. It rattled, like something inside was waking up. She pressed her lips shut, looked in the mirror and saw herself, but older, aged, hollow. Behind her eyes, something blinked. She didn't tell anyone, not when the second cough came, not when it brought blood. She began hearing things, a scratching beneath the floorboards, a name whispered in mirrors, salt in her drinking water, hair in her bath. At first she blamed the house, then the weather, then nothing at all, because deep down she knew. This was not new, it was old, too old to stop. One night she followed the sound, down the hallway, past the locked room no one entered. She placed her ear to the door. And on the other side, she heard a voice she hadn't heard in years. Mama Ganyat, dead, buried, remembered. The voice said, "Do not open the mouth that has not been sealed." Then silence, the kind that hums, the kind that watches. She turned, and the hallway stretched. Longer than it should be. Shadows flickered, walls pulsed. She ran, back to her room, back to her bed. But that night, she dreamed of salt. Salt piled on the table, salt poured from broken mouths, salt replacing every word. When she woke, her throat was raw, and her hands were coated in fine white grains. It wasn't a dream. It was a warning. Inheritance is not always a gift. Sometimes it crawls. Sometimes it gags. It began with a meal, a tense evening beneath gray skies. The family gathered at the table, silent, eyes heavy with unspoken things. The air was thick, like the world was holding its breath. Plates clinked, forks scratched enamel. No one smiled. No one looked up. Then Morẹ gasped. The sound tore through the stillness like a blade. Her body jerked forward. Her hands flew to her throat. Her mouth opened wide. Too wide. But there was no food, no cough, no choking. Only salt. A dry, endless stream of salt spilled from her lips. It fell without stopping, without effort, as though it had always been waiting there. Grain after grain poured out, coating her chin, her chest, the floor. The salt didn't clump, it didn't dissolve, it simply fell, ancient and dry, like sand from a shattered calabash. Her eyes bulged in silent horror. She tried to cry out, tried to stop it, but her mouth gave her no voice. She was screaming inside, but only salt came out. The others watched, frozen, bewildered. The salt piled at her feet, and no one moved. That night, she dreamed. The dream took her to a place she had never seen, but somehow knew. A dried-out riverbank, cracked and lifeless. And there, sitting with her back curved and her head bowed, was Mama Ganyat. Her fingers held a rusted knife, combing slowly through her scalp. Scrape, scrape, scrape. She looked up and opened her mouth. The words came, but backward, bent and broken, like they'd been chewed before being spat out. Then came blood, trickling from the spaces between her roots, running down her neck, gathering in strange, twisting symbols around her feet. Only one word passed clean through the mess. Morẹ, niké, her full name, spoken not in warning, but in calling. The next morning, Adebayo found the mirror, Mama's mirror, hidden, covered in dust. He wiped it clean. The glass trembled. His reflection blinked, then vanished. What stared back was older, scarred, hollow. Its eyes bled. Its mouth moved slowly. Silent words formed in dread. It mouthed, "Tell her, before she tears." That night, Morẹ, niké woke with blood on her pillow. Her mouth was sore, her jaw tight. She stumbled to the mirror, and what she saw, what she felt, broke her. Her tongue was split, roughly, stitched crudely with coarse black hair, woven like ancestral thread. She opened her mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Only air, only silence, only the hollow echo of a curse beginning to wake. Silence can preserve a secret, but secrets feed when kept too long. Before the red goat returned, the animals knew. The birds stopped singing. The air thickened with things unseen. Dogs refused to bark, and the wind no longer danced through the leaves. Then came by-Rosa. He walked with the weight of old things. His face was caked in sacred ash. His eyes held no light, and behind him dragged the red goat horn staff, its tip carving grooves into the earth with each step. Children screamed, mothers closed doors, chickens ran wild, and the shrine, untouched for years, creaked open like something sighing after centuries of silence. Coyote no longer sleeps alone. A voice not his own speaks through him, and Morẹ, niké walks in trance, chanting words she does not know, backwards. At midnight, by-Rosa returns. He slams his staff to the floor once, twice. The third time, the horn shatters. The floor splits. Blood rises. It pools in a spiral beneath the idol. And from the walls, names begin to appear, etched by unseen hands. But one rises above them all: Obenrin, daughter, vessel, debt. The shrine closes again before sunrise, but now the house is listening, and so is the land. The shrine was never asleep, it was watching, and now it remembers. Even fire bows to the place where oaths are buried. Coyote could no longer bear the silence, the way the shrine seemed to breathe at night, the way the air held its breath whenever someone passed near it, the smell of oil that grew stronger with each passing dusk. He wanted it gone, all of it. He poured the kerosene himself. His hands were shaking. The canister clanked against the stone. He soaked the shrine, every edge, every crack. He struck the match. The flame flared. For a second it danced, wild, beautiful, ready to consume. Then gone. No smoke, no fire, only frost. A sheet of ice crept across the base of the shrine. The stones beneath turned pale, cold. Even the air changed. His breath hung in front of him like mist. And Coyote wept. In the morning the signs multiplied. 3 dead chickens laid before the door, each with salt stuffed in their beaks. Their legs bent wrong, their feathers stiff with night sweat. Inside, Morẹ, niké's name was scratched into her bedroom wall, not once, dozens of times, different hands, different depths, some fresh, some faded. Adebayo began to hear whispers beneath the floorboards. Late at night, when everyone else had drifted into uneasy dreams, he pressed his ear against the tiles, and there she was, Mama Ganiat, speaking through the wood.
Remember
"The blood
who
tree
you
breathes,"
are.
she said. He said nothing, just rose, and began to dig. The tree sat behind the compound, old, sacred. No one had dared touch it, but now the ground no longer felt sacred. It felt swollen. They dug in silence, hands blistering, sweat pouring, until they found it. A rusted blade, a child's anklet, beads blackened by old blood. The earth around them groaned, not loudly, soft, disapproving, like something being woken up too early. Coyote reached toward the blade, and the moment his fingers touched it, he collapsed. His body jerked, his eyes rolled, and from his mouth came a chant, a song no one recognized but everyone remembered. They weren't curses. They were instructions, instructions from the dead, because not even the roots could hide what was buried in blood. What is carved into spirit cannot be erased by silence. The final confession came not in a storm, but in a whisper. Baba Adetola sat by the fire that no longer warmed anyone. He looked smaller now, as if the weight of what he carried had hollowed him. He said, "One child, per generation, one life, to keep the shrine asleep." They listened, none spoke, because the truth already lived inside them. It had always been there. They had just never named it. Ganiat defied the pact. She refused to surrender. She kept her child. She kept Morẹ niké, and the shrine had been waiting. That night the family gathered. No prayers, only relics, hair, cloth, beads, bones. They drew a ring of salt around the pyre and placed every piece inside. Then they lit it. The fire didn't roar. It whispered. The flames turned blue. The wind howled like an orphan. The walls began to moan. Wood cracked. Salt scattered. The air turned red. Then Coyote vanished. Gone. No cry, no scream. Just absence. And then the shrine exploded. A rush of smoke. A sound like breath being sucked from the world. And rain. But not water. Something darker. Something thicker. Blood rained from the ceiling, soaking ash, smearing names, erasing the line. At sunrise, they checked the records, every book, every wall, every family tree. And the name Adetola was gone, not crossed out, not destroyed, just erased, like it had never been spoken. Morẹ niké knelt in the ash, her hands trembling, her face streaked. She looked up and whispered, "Who will remember us now? The name is gone.
Who are we now?"
It was carved into bone. By now, Morẹ niké knew. The voice in the mirror, the salt in her bed, the stitching on her tongue. None of it was coincidence. But knowing isn't the same as escaping. The body remembers what the mouth cannot say. She tried to speak, to pray, to confess, but her words came out jumbled, slurred, choking on silence. The syllables collapsed in her throat like stones. The tongue, once stitched, was now splitting again, not cleanly, jagged. Hair burst through like weeds through cracked tile. She vomited salt, coughed blood. The air around her smelled like copper and ash. And then she heard the voice inside her, not from her ears, but from the meat of her own jaw. Her gums pulsed. Her molars rang. "You were named to hold it, and what is named must speak." The house no longer slept. The walls creaked with breath. The doors swayed though wind did not move. Mirrors no longer reflected, only watched. She stood in front of one mirror that night and watched her reflection twitch. It smiled before she did. Then it whispered her name backward. In the dead of night, Morẹ niké rose from her mat, eyes rolled white, lips trembling. She walked barefoot to the shrine, leaving prints made of salt. She opened her mouth slowly, the tongue within unfurled like parchment. Long, dark, hairy, split. It moved of its own accord. It spoke, not Yoruba, not English, but grief. A language made of loss, of buried names, of swallowed women. The idol cracked, the roof groaned, the walls bled. Coyote screamed, but not from inside the house, from beneath it. The voice was trying to come up through him. The shrine shook. It knew it had been summoned, but it wasn't ready. Not yet. So it spat her back. Morẹ collapsed. Her tongue burned with heat, and inside her mouth one name boiled to the surface, a name she never knew, but recognized. Olorun Ifola. The tree behind the compound was no longer just a tree. It pulsed, it sighed, it bled. Its roots spread wider than the compound itself, wrapped around graves, around secrets, around promises made in whispers. Adebayo couldn't sleep, not since the shrine opened, not since the night Coyote screamed. He stood before the tree at dawn and saw it. The bark had split from top to root, and inside, bone. Small, curved, children's, stacked, tied, etched with letters in blood. He placed his palm against it, and everything tilted. His vision twisted. He was pulled back through time, through ribs and prayers, through tongues ripped from mouths. He saw generations, one child per cycle, each swallowed, each named, each made silent. Their bones, fed to the roots, to keep the tree alive, to keep the name from rising. He fell backward, trembling, his hands buried in soil, and the soil responded. It shifted, it parted, it wrote. Not with pen, with worms, with roots. A name crawled from the earth, letter by letter, not spoken, written. Morẹ's full name, every part, even the ones the family had tried to forget. The earth remembered, and beneath his feet the tree breathed, once, twice, then whispered, "Your silence is older than your memory." And Adebayo wept. Morẹ wrote her name in salt on the floor. Each letter formed slowly, each grain trembled. She whispered, "If it wants me, let it come, but let it come through truth." The salt hissed, the wind in the compound reversed, the pictures on the wall curled inward. The photograph of Ganiat twisted in its frame. The pot in the kitchen shattered. The mirrors cracked. She heard voices rising from the cracks in the floor, muffled, layered, voices of women, of girls, of ancestors unnamed. We were told to hush. Now we hum. Morẹ fell to her knees. She felt the hair beneath her tongue grow again, fast, wild, rooting into her jaw. Her teeth cracked. The tongue split again, and this time it dropped. Onto the salt. She screamed, but no one heard it, because the scream was not for ears, it was for the shrine. Behind her, the mirror cracked wider, not shattered, opened. It stretched into shadow, became a doorway. Inside, she saw it, an altar made of jawbones and copper. 1,000 tongues hung like fruit. Some were still twitching, some still whispered, some called her name. She stood and stepped through. The glass did not break, it swallowed. Time had no shape inside the mirror. It rippled, folded, collapsed, and rebuilt itself from sound. Morẹ walked across a floor made of skin. The walls were wet with memory. Every breath she took felt borrowed. And then, Ganiat, she stood waiting, alive, not as a ghost, but as something returned. She wore the clothes she had died in, blood still on her chest, but her eyes glowed, bright, knowing. She opened her blouse. Her chest was hollow. Inside it, names, carved into ribs, one for each child, one for each vow. "I gave you life," she said. "They asked for silence. I gave them a scream." She reached into her chest, pulled out a tongue, wet, soft, still breathing. She handed it to Morẹ. "Say your name," she whispered, "but say it back to yourself." Morẹ took the tongue, pressed it to her lips, and the world cracked. The floor split, the ceiling wept, the sky folded, and the mirror began to shake. When the mirror released her, the world had shifted. The shrine was gone, the house silent, the air cleansed. But her name was different now, heavier, complete. She stepped outside. The tree had fallen, its roots curled like fingers, its bark peeled like old skin. Adebayo stood there, staring at nothing, his mouth open. No sound came out. Coyote was never found. But Morẹ spoke. To the soil, to the wind, to the silence. Inheritance is not always a gift, she said. And the silence replied, sometimes. It's a curse waiting for a name. She turned from the compound, walked barefoot into the new day. And behind her, the salt began to melt. Thank you for watching our video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. See you in our next video. Stay safe, stay blessed.